All right, so in this session, you're going to learn more about how to use SQL within Databricks. So we have two speakers with us today, Philip Pham from eSimplicity and Lindsay Gillespie from Databricks, who will provide us multiple demos. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Philip to kick things off for us.
Excellent. Thanks, Rachel. And thank you all for being here today. As Rachel mentioned, we have an exciting series of some sessions in response to the feedback that you provided in the recent town hall about specific Databricks features that you'd like to learn a little bit more about to help you be more productive on the platform. And in today's first session, we'll be going over the Databricks SQL query functionality in the platform, where Lindsay will kick us off and provide an overview of the UI. She'll also provide details of how you would do your development in setting up your queries, saving your queries, and with those queries in mind, building visualizations and incorporating them into a dashboard. And finally, I'll end us off with providing an overview of the query profile feature within Databricks. With that, I'll hand it over to Lindsay.
All right. Thank you, Philip. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Philip said, my name is Lindsay Gillespie. I'm a solutions architect here with Databricks, and I am so excited to spend the next 15 minutes with you going through DB SQL. Before I start sharing my screen, though, I'm going to do a quick refresh on what Databricks SQL is. It provides the general compute resources for the SQL queries, visualizations, and dashboards that are executed against the tables in your lakehouse. It's packed with thousands of optimizations, the main one being the vectorized query engine, which is called Photon, that provides extremely fast performance at low cost. We'll be focusing today on the queries, visualizations, and dashboards in the UI, but I just wanted to call out that under the hood, no matter how you leverage DB SQL, Photon is the engine optimizing those queries. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Can I get one thumbs up at least that somebody can see my screen?
Looks great, Lindsay.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. All right, so here is the homepage of Databricks. You can always come back here by going to the top left here. And once you get here, you'll see a few get started links, as well as what you worked on recently on the left. And then this is new, anything that's going on that's popular, anything that you have access to. But for today, we're going to be spending the most part in this SQL editor here on the left. So let's go ahead and open it up. All right, so here on the left, we have this Schema Browser, which I find really helpful. You can look through any catalogs, schemas, and then those tables and columns, especially if you were working on something yesterday, you forgot though exactly which table you were working on, and you can dig back through here and get a refresh of what that looks like underneath. So there's 5 concept table here, for example, and you can get a reminder of what's in there. But today we are going to be focusing on the person table. So I went ahead and pinned it to the top. And then here you can see, what columns we have, their values. But my favorite feature is this preview of the table, which goes ahead and makes a query for us over here on the right, goes ahead and runs it, and gives us 50 rows just as an example of what we have within this table. So now that we have our first query created, I want to go ahead and show you a few cool editor tricks that I like using. One, let's go ahead and add in just a simple filter, so that way we can dig a little deeper into the data. And here you can see that as I'm typing, we have this autocomplete feature pull up. So I want to go ahead and do a where. So I'm going to press enter. And I want to filter on a year of birth. And so as I'm typing year, it's pulling up functions that I can use, but also those columns. So I can navigate with up and down arrows, also with my mouse. And here I'm going to go ahead and choose year of birth and say, I don't know, the first value is 1963. So let's say year of birth 1963. So that autocomplete really comes in handy. Another one is if you click these 3 ellipses, then you have format query. I don't know about y'all, I really like having the formatted queries here. It's a huge help. So that's a big one for me. You can also always come back here and see what keyboard shortcuts you have. This is based on your operating system. So for me, formatting the query is Command-Shift-F, and I can always come back to see what the other ones are. All right, and another thing is, so right now, Databricks went ahead and added in a limit of 50, but I'm going to remove that because by default, we limit to 1,000 results. So no matter what, as long as it's checked, which it is by default, then we will only return 1,000 results. We recommend leaving this on if you're just digging around, seeing what stuff looks like. All right, so now, as you can see down here, it let me know that 1,000 rows were returned. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and open up an existing query, because this one's just a little basic. We want to add a little spice so I can show you a few cool new features. So you can open up any existing query. For me, this all queries is what I have access to. There's also just my personal queries, and then any favorites, which I went ahead and favorited what I want to show, which is this query params, because I want to show off the cool query params that we have. So here, these double curly annotation, this is query params, and you'll see this correlates to the fields down here. All this means is that this lets you substitute values into the query at runtime. So that way it makes it a little more dynamic. Instead of me hard coding in that 1963, you can add these in. You can add a new one either by doing Command I. It'll bring up this little parameter window, or down here at the plus, you can press parameter and say, I want to, make a test. Then this drop down lets you decide on the type. You can do number, dates, times, anything in here, and you can add something as well. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm feeling good with my from and to that we have going on, but just wanted to call that out. Also, another cool feature that I really like is if I'm playing around with different queries or I have multiple, then you can always highlight which part you want to run. And if I press run up here, it will only run that part. So if you notice right now, year of birth is ordered by that last row. Let's say I didn't want to order it for some reason, then you'll see that query ran without that last row on line 8, and it's not ordered anymore. So I'm going to go back to our default just so that we have a clean slate. And next, I want to show this top right section here. So we have that ellipses, which I showed you. We have the warehouse that you're running on. We also have the save functionality so that you make sure you can come back to this later. Just the way that I added this query params example from the existing, now I can do that as well. You can schedule. So right now it's based on never, but you can go as high as 1 month. So if you click that, you can choose the time and date that you'd like to run this at. And then the last one up top right here is sharing permissions. So say I want to share this query with my counterpart, Arif, who's on the call, then I can choose his email. And you have 4 options here for role-based access. We have manage, edit, run, and view. I trust Arif. We're going to go ahead and allow manage. And I can say email new user, or I can also copy the link and send it via Teams to make sure that he has that link. So you can go ahead and add, and it'll show you that Arif's now a user of this query, and I can go ahead and remove or change that at any time. All right, so that is all I wanted to show with the queries. Now let's move into the visualizations. So now at the bottom here, you can see that the plus bar where we also could have added the parameter, you can also add a visualization. So this pulls up big old window. We have a bunch of different visualization types over here, scrolling through, but right now we're going to focus on a bar chart just to keep it simple. So you walk through these options and you can choose the column that you'd like. So let's go for X, let's make, I don't know, month of birth. And then we're going to base it on the count of people with that month of birth. And I'm going to group it by gender, just to add a little bit more color, and then stack as well. So now we have a pretty good looking chart, but you can go through and add in different labels if you'd like, to make it a little bit prettier to read, different stuff along here, change the colors, all the formatting options. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right, and now we have right next to our results, we have this bar chart, and every time that you rerun this query, it will update the results in that visualization itself. All right, so again, this is very basic bar chart that we made here. I want to show you some that are already made, and I'm going to open up same exact query, just already has some built in. So here we have a horizontal bar chart, we have a pie chart based on gender, and then patients by year, just another bar chart. So with this, that's the visualization. You can always come back in here and edit. It'll pull up the same exact window that you used to create. That way you can go back in and see, or if you have access to somebody else's, you can click edit and see how they made it in case you want to make one similar to your own. All right, so now let's move into dashboarding. So now that we've made these visualizations, we're going to want to add them to some kind of dashboard. That way people can see that high level, and I can add in a little extra juice wherever I want. So here we can add to dashboard, and you can either search for an existing one. So say, I don't know, I want to add it to one that's already there. I can search through here, but I don't want to add it to an existing one. I want to create a new dashboard. So you can go ahead and do this within here by saying create new dashboard. And let's, I don't know, DB SQL demo May 24th. I'm going to save it off here and I can click add. All right, and it gave me this little pop-up here at the bottom. You can go ahead and open this and voila, we have our first dashboard. It's very simple. So we can click into edit and you can, rearrange the blocks however you like. I'm going to add in a text box. This takes markdown. So I could do, I don't know, this is data and add that to the dashboard. So now you have a little bit extra there. I'm going to click done editing. And again, this one's really simple. I want to show you a little bit of a better demo dashboard. So I'm going to click back to dashboards here on the left. And now, again, I can see all dashboards that I have access to. Mine's at the top right now. Again, I can go over to my dashboards that I've worked on. And then favorites is the one that I would like to show. So here we have the same exact underlying query that we've been working with this whole time. Just those visualizations are added in, little text and whatnot. As you come here, these ellipses also let you either download, preview the visualization data itself. So just kind of like those results that we saw with the queries, you can see a preview of that here. And you can also view the query itself, which will take you back to the SQL editor and show you what that underlying query is. I'm going to go back though and show you all the top right here, some of these options. So they look very similar to what we had with the SQL editor, right? Still sharing off. So here, I think I already had Arif in here as being able to run. So say I want to remove him and then add back in, then I can say any of these roles, but the new thing is this share queries associated with the dashboard. So this was not on the SQL editor because now with the dashboard, you have the option to either share the underlying queries themselves with anybody that you share with. So if I didn't want Arif to be able to click that view query and go back and see what's running the visualization, then I would leave this unchecked. So again, I could do that and now Arif can run, but wouldn't be able to actually view underneath. All right, now we have the schedule tab. Again, very similar. This will actually refresh the queries underneath the dashboard and then update the visualizations therefore after that. So you can do this never up to every 1 week. It'll run on the warehouse you select. You can add any subscribers you'd like. So say I'd like to add myself, then I'll get an email whenever it's updated. Save it off there. And then you can also do ad hoc refreshing if you'd like. And over here on the right, we have a few different options as well. I showed you the edit, but we also have a few different exporting methods. I'm going to go ahead and download as PDF. That way it goes ahead and gets working. It takes a quick second. But you can also export the dashboard, and that will download a DB dash file from there. And then as this is downloading the PDF, just a few other things, you can go into full screen mode if you're presenting. You can also, move it around different folders or clone if you'd like to make it your own or be able to make a slightly different version. So now let's download the PDF in here. Beautiful little PDF that you're able to share around if you like. All right, and with that, that is DB SQL, your 101. We have the SQL editor, the visualizations, and the dashboards all wrapped up into one. And I hope that this gave you all a good overview. Thank you so much for being interested. And can't wait to see all that you're going to do with this. My counterpart, Arif, and I will be taking questions at the end, but for now, I'm going to pass it over to Philip.
Excellent. Thanks, Lindsay. So for a moment, I'm going to just jump back to the slides to share the next part of the presentation and give you a little bit of an overview of what the Databricks Query Profiler is. And that's a very specific feature as part of Databricks that will allow you to view queries that have already been executed, to visualize what the data flow and sequence of operations look like in each of the steps as your queries are being processed. And this tool and feature will allow you to be able to do things such as identifying the slowest parts of your queries so you can figure out and determine how you can optimize them to make them run more quickly. And with this tool as well, what I'll be showcasing is the ability to drill down into individual metrics around the time spent, the number of rows returned, and memory at each stage along the way. Okay, so let me share now the Databricks browser. So here I'm on the home page for the SQL home page, and I've already prepared a query ahead of time. I'm going to open that up and just describe to you what's in there so that later when we go to the query profiler, you can map the specific SQL logic to what's shown. So in here, I have a query that is querying the public data database, and very specifically, it is retrieving the 10 most recent drug labelers that have drugs with more than 10 packages. And for the results that are returned, to return the number of drugs that those labelers have that meet that criteria. And so just the structure of how that query is was written is that there is an initial sub query where we are querying records from the FDA drug package and the FDA drug product tables joined by the product ID. And then from there, the number of packages are calculated for every single drug and filtered for only drugs that have more than 10 packages. So that result set is then taken and queried again and grouped by the drug labeler to determine the number of drugs that meet that particular criteria. And it's pulling the most recent marketing date of the drug to determine which ones are the most recent labelers, and then it's limiting at the very end to 10. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and run this particular query. And so we'll let that run. It's pointed to a very specific warehouse, and it took 4.41 seconds. So if you hop over to the query history tab, you can click on that specific query that completed. And on the right panel, you'll get a high-level view of metadata and metrics on that query execution, getting information such as the creator of that query, the total wall clock duration of that query running, including the breakout between the amount of time spent scheduling, as well as running the specific query. And then you'll get also other metadata such as the start and end time as well. So from this panel, you can click See Query Profile. And then on the left side, it's going to default to this graph view representation of what happened when that query was getting executed by Databricks. And so the best way to look at it is going to be to start from the bottom where recall, as I was describing the query, it was first in that inner query, pulling records from two specific tables and joining them together and aggregating and grouping by the results. And so you can see that here with two of these paths where the public data, FDA drug package data was scanned. Those records were converted to columnar, they're filtered, shuffled to prepare for a join. And the same thing happening in the FDA drug product table. With those results, they're joined together, and there's additional grouping and aggregations and shuffling that are happening as the query was interpreting the total number of results and aggregating total number of products that met the criteria, filtering it out to get to the most recent drug labelers that were returned at the very end. And so in this particular panel, by default, for each of these stages, you'll see the amount of time that's spent. But you can toggle between other metrics such as rows that were returned in each of these stages, as well as the amount of peak memory that it took to complete that stage of that specific operation. Besides the graph, another helpful view to look at the order of the operations is to look at it from the tree standpoint. And here, as you are toggling between the specific metrics, you'll get a better sense relatively between these specific stages where some of those bottlenecks may lie. So as an example, if one of your very large queries was running and it was taking hours, maybe even days to run, you can run this, you can look at the query profiler for that query, switch to the tree view and immediately see which stage it's spending the most amount of time in, or that's using the most amount of memory. And that would be indicative of specifically a place in your query that you can spend a little bit of time on to optimize. And so as an example, if the amount of time spent to scan the entire data was took a really long time, you may want to consider perhaps running a filtering on that specific scans immediately before joining them with other data sets. And that would be ways to essentially optimize your query and to improve your overall experience working within the platform. Okay, so I sped through that, but with that, I wanted to leave time for questions. So I'll turn it back to the presenter to take it on from here.
Great. Thank you both. All right, so let's just jump right into questions. The first one, I noticed a couple of questions regarding this. Dashboard editor and SQL editor isn't available yet. When will that be made available to us?
So good question. So that SQL menu capability has not been enabled for all users yet. We are working currently on rolling that out. As part of that capability, not only are we going to enable users to get to that SQL menu to build the SQL queries, as Lindsay and I have gone over, but it will also enable connecting your SaaS workloads and jobs to the Databricks platform as well. And so we're working all that out. We're currently in testing, and we'll reach out back out to you soon with timelines as we learn more.
Great. So next question, where are visualizations getting saved?
Sure, I can take that one. So the visualizations, and let me know if there's any clarification needed on this question, but the visualizations are saved within the workspace. So right along your queries. So you can save a query, and if you want to go in and edit that particular visualization, you can do so the same way that you would go and edit a query itself.
Thank you, Arif. So next question, and Lindsay, I think this was in regards to that bar chart that you showed earlier. Someone asked, can you remove the values between the years on the bar chart? For example, I think they saw the 2010.5 on that bar chart.
Yeah, great question. I was looking back through, going back to my dashboard to see if I could. This one was made off of an older way of being able to make the visualizations. So it does not look like off the top that I can, but that just feels not right. So I would hope so is my answer, but I don't have a way right now to.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Let's go to the next question here. Can you add dashboard-wide filters?
Yep, that's actually the default behavior. So when you add a visualization that has parameters to a dashboard, it will be applied as a dashboard level filter, and it will apply to all of the visualizations that use that particular parameter. So there's a way to limit it so that you have a parameter applied just to a single visualization, but by default, it will apply to the entire dashboard.
Wonderful, thank you. So next question, for dashboards, can you automate PDF production with a set of parameter selections? For example, if PDF 1 has parameter setting 1, PDF 2 has parameter setting 2, and so forth.
So by PDF, I'm going to assume here that we're referring to when we export the dashboard as a PDF. So yeah, I think this could be done, although I think it would need to leverage some of our APIs. So so that you can kind of automatically set those parameters and then export the PDF based off of the parameters. Of course, you could manually go into the UI, you could set your parameter, export the PDF, and then set the parameters for setting 2, export the PDF. But it sounds like this question is asking a little bit more about being able to do this in an automated fashion, which would leverage our backend APIs.
Great. Thank you so much, Arif. All right. So I think we have time for one more question. But what's the pros and cons of using the SQL editor versus the SQL on Spark within our notebook for our current configuration now?
The SQL versus SQL debate. So yeah, so the main pro I'm going to highlight is really the editor itself. Typically, we would point to the engine. By default, the SQL editor uses the Photon engine, but you can also leverage that same Photon engine inside of a notebook. Another benefit would be the cost, actually. So while you get everything, as long as it's enabled, and it will be enabled for you shortly, the SQL, the queries that are run inside of the SQL warehouses, which is the back end and compute for the SQL editor, they actually are charged at a slightly lower cost. So I would say if you're doing just pure ad hoc SQL development, you want to do that inside of the SQL editor. If you're doing interactive development that requires some SQL, some Python, some R, then you'll do that inside of a notebook. And if you're scheduling a job, whether that's SQL queries, Python, you'll probably just run that as a job, which we'll cover later in the workflow session.
Great. Thank you so much, Arif.